the American people, whether you went to college or not, you did not have to be an economics major to know that it is wrong to make someone pay off a loan that they did not take out, that they did not sign for. So anything that makes more Americans co-signers on loans they didn't take out, I think is a real mistake. It's the wrong thing to do. My name is Angela Morabito. I am the spokeswoman for the Defense of Freedom Institute and a former U.S. Department of Education press secretary. The Biden administration has decided to forgive $39 billion in student debt, impacting more than 800,000 borrowers. And they're doing this based on what they are describing as basically an accounting error. They say that payments that should have counted toward income-driven repayment in the past that weren't counted toward that program now do. This $39 billion decision seemingly came out of nowhere until you realize that it is part of Biden's larger plan to enact mass loan forgiveness any way he can, legal or not. As we saw in the Supreme Court decision, his use of the HEROES Act was plainly illegal. This use of income-driven repayment is incredibly questionable as well. It's really odd that there was this $39 billion set of accounting errors that seemingly nobody had anything to say about until the Supreme Court decision came down and, oh, surprise, surprise, the Biden team is going to use that to forgive more and more student loans. They actually brag about it in their press release. They say, well, this brings our total amount of loan forgiveness to well over $100 billion. I don't think that is worth bragging about. I think that's actually pretty terrible. And it's not what the American people want. It's certainly not ethically the right thing to do. I don't think it's legally the right thing to do either. It's Congress that has the power of the purse. So if President Biden wants to get this done, he ought to go ask Congress, but he doesn't because he knows they will say no, that this is an incredibly unpopular plan. I also really hesitate to use the language that the Biden administration is using and calling it debt relief. These $39 billion don't go away. They just don't get erased by writing in zeros on a spreadsheet. They actually get transferred to the federal taxpayer. So the burden of the student loan debt is being transferred from people who took out those loans to people who didn't. Most Americans do not have a college degree. Millions more made their college decision of what to study and where to study it based on where they were confident that they could repay their loans, that they could fulfill that obligation that they signed up for. Many more have already paid off their student debt. And by transferring this debt from people who took it out to people who didn't, the Biden administration is saying, well, too bad. We don't really care about your financial choices. You are now on the hook for billions of dollars. When you look at the national debt numbers, it's pretty clear that we do not have $39 billion laying around to spend. But if we did, I think there are much better uses of that money than a very regressive student loan policy. Anything that benefits people who are statistically higher earners at the expense of people who are statistically lower earners, those who didn't go to college. That's a regressive policy. It's a really interesting choice for people who call themselves progressive and like to brag about how progressive they are. But if we did have $39 billion waiting around to be spent, there is a much better use of that. And it means getting students up to speed in the educational basics that will serve them for a lifetime. It means making sure that every student in America can read, write, do math, and understand science and history at a very high level. That's what American education can and should be. It's distressing that we're not there yet. It should concern everyone, whether you are a parent or not, because this is about the future of our country. The learning loss numbers that we're seeing and the nation's report card scores that have come out since COVID have laid bare the fact that American education is really in a state of emergency. So if $39 billion were to randomly fall out of the sky, I would say we devote every last cent of that to the educational basics and not onto a regressive policy that seems haphazardly thrown together and that benefits people who made a financial decision that the rest of us just didn't co-sign for. This is very much, I think, a political decision. It certainly doesn't seem to have much legal basis. And I predict this is not the end of the road, that this will be challenged through the legal system.